Hello and welcome to OBJ special coverage of COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Michael Curran, the publisher of the Ottawa Business Journal. In order to keep local business leaders informed, OBJ will be conducting a series of video panel discussions with local business experts. And today we're dealing with an issue besides the health of their employees, might be top of mind for local business owners and operators. And that is the financial health of their corporations. I'd now like to introduce today's panel, all experts from local accounting firms. We have Michael Burch, managing partner of Welch LLP. Hello, Michael.
Hello.
We have Sean Murphy, regional managing partner at MNP.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Sean. And we have from Baker Tilly, we have Ken Tammadge and also Rosa Iuliano. Welcome to Baker Tilly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I can see most of the people, at least maybe the two or the three of us, are working from their home offices. That's the recommendation, of course. I guess Baker Tilly, we'll start with you, Ken, and Rosa is maintaining some office operations.
Right now, we are keeping the office open. We're getting everybody to set up remotely. We have a number of people working remotely today, but it is not the full office. And what we're trying to do is establish a protocol where we would have the IT people make sure that everybody was allowed to operate remotely. So we're going through that process this morning, this afternoon, and hopefully by end of day, we'll have the capability to do so.
Good, that's very prudent. Michael, why don't we start with you? We're living in unprecedented times, certainly. So I'd like to ask you, what are you hearing, if anything, from clients these days? And if you are hearing from people, what are their concerns?
Yeah, I think the major concern right now is cash flow. And what should we be doing to prepare ourselves for this? How should we be getting ahead of this and understanding kind of what the effect's going to be, how long this is going to last? That's what we're hearing.
Okay. And Sean, would you agree with that? Have you been hearing from people? I know you have a special expertise, by the way, Sean, in risk. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. And so we're absolutely hearing the same thing Michael is hearing from our clients. I think it goes one step further. So around how do we mitigate some of the things around cash flow, but more importantly, what do we do about our teams, our workforce, our leadership, and fundamentally, how do we operate the business knowing that we're going to potentially be dealing with less of all of that?
That is a real challenge. Rosa, let me come back to you. Have you received any emails or texts or phone calls, jumped on the call with some clients? And if so, what are they saying to you?
Clients are very concerned about what's happening in the market, what's happening to their portfolios. And other clients, I think, are very concerned about how to deal with employees, people who are staying at home. What are their obligations? How are they going to manage the cash flow? How are they going to keep a business functioning if the business isn't open on a day-to-day basis?
Those are, really real world concerns. So Michael, if you had a client and, Ottawa, I think we could agree is a city of small businesses, right? Where we do have, some kind of global players, but really we're a city of small players. If you were speaking to a client today or in the next couple of days, understanding the situation is changing on an hour-to-hour basis, but what type of basic advice would you give them as an expert in accounting?
Yeah, I think I'd start with having them stress test their projections for the next 6 months. I would go through my client or customer lists and I would say, who's likely to be most affected by this? Who's likely to not feel the pinch immediately, but perhaps later on? And then that back add into my own cash flow and say, okay, if I can expect that 60% of my clients are going to be sort of business as usual, 20% are going to be hard stop, then are they going to have less billings? Or are we just going to delay our cash flow? So just do some regression analysis about, okay, if worst case scenario, sales are down 30%, receipts are delayed 45 days, what does that do to our line? And do we have sufficient cash flow? What steps do we need to take internally to make sure that we can match up and continue to operate?
And Sean, I'll switch to you. Anything to add to that, or any other issue in particular that you would be advising clients about?
Well, I think, and I think this is probably the next step that Michael would be talking about, but it's really around looking at your discretionary spending. One of the things that we're just even as our own business, but more importantly, as we counsel our clients, is what are the things you can defer in terms of spending that you might be looking at. So whether it's a investment in potentially what you had lined up for a end of fiscal year or around training or these types of things that are maybe big ticket items that you potentially forestall that to post when we get out of this current situation.
Yeah.
Rosa or Ken, did you want to weigh in on this topic? Any practical advice for people in these changing times?
Yeah, well, I think a couple of things is that people are aware that it's going to impact the income statement, but where the focus should be is on the balance sheet. And I think that's what Michael was referring to, is that we have to be concerned with the ability to continue operations. So that's looking more at the balance sheet side of the equation and saying, what is my line of credit? What's the ability to obtain financing? How can I manage? Knowing that net income is likely going to drop for the majority of businesses in some way, shape, or form, and cash flow is going to suffer. And there's a bit of a switch from the income statement to the balance sheet.
Yeah, we had a client specifically today that said they were about this is the time of the year that they do their bonus checks, and it was going to be quite a significant amount. Should we make these payments now? Should we hold off for 60 days? And sort of our advice was, look, if there's some of them there that are counting on these bonuses, you better go ahead and make them. But if some of them can say, yeah, then I would, give it 60 days. Say, we're going to hold these bonuses for 60 days and just play it out for a little bit.
On that note, maybe Sean, is part of what we need to do here to be excessively transparent with our employees?
Oh, absolutely. I think the over communication, I think, is the watchword of the day. I think we're seeing that both from, I guess, the politicians, the health officials, what have you. But I know that even our communications within our own firm is extensive. And from moving to, we're going to talk about this once a week, to once every day, to, hey, we're going to cover this on weekends, and now to twice a day. So I think that that's absolutely key. And I think part of that is how do we make sure that our teams, our staff are fully in the know. And I think that's fundamental to, I think, being able to move forward this proactively. I think the challenge is that there's a heck of a lot of information out there, and how do you actually translate that into something that doesn't fearmonger or create more risk or potentially for more risk in terms of what teams are hearing and trying to translate that. So I think that we need to get ahead of that, and we need to provide something that makes sense. And I think that even counts in terms of working with our clients in that same way, to make sure that they're getting the straight goods from us in terms of what potentially is going on and how to take action for that.
Well, thanks for that, Sean. I'm going to throw the last question out to everyone. This is a question that deals a little bit with potential policy advice to the federal government or other levels of government. So I appreciate some of you may or may not at the national firms be able to comment on this, although you might offer some personal advice. Michael, if you were sitting down with a finance minister or even the prime minister or someone that has his or her ear, what advice would you give to our political leaders in difficult times like this?
Yeah, so I think for now they're doing some of the right things. The step that they're taking with the banks and allowing the banks to put more money out there. But I think my big concern would be how much red tape is there going to be all around this? Like, it's got to be quick. These times are tight, and there's got to be some quick movement as we enter into these programs. That would be my advice to the government. Let's just make this a lot easier and quicker.
And Rosa or Ken, any advice that you're able to impart, if any, on the policy side? Again, I appreciate at national firms it's a little bit trickier for you guys to speak about this.
I can speak to it from a tax professional who would say it'd be really nice if maybe they extend some extensions for tax filings for people, because I think there's going to be difficulty to meet deadlines, both for the end of March, for the end of April, maybe corporate, whether that may be filing deadlines or maybe leniency on if people can't make the cash flow payment.
Have we ever seen a time, Rosa, where, so I think we have seen instances where the tax filing deadline was increased. Have we ever seen a time when other maybe filing deadlines, like even around GST remittances or something like that. Has that ever happened in our country, or is that unprecedented as well?
There's always been taxpayer relief that exists. So if in times where there's been flooding or fires in the West, taxpayer relief always has existed to allow a taxpayer to come forward and apply. But as Michael said, that's a lot of red tape to do that. So, I mean, several years ago, the government had a computer virus and they extended the tax filing deadline. I think this virus is probably a little bit more extenuating and deserves the same treatment.
Yeah.
Okay. And last word to you, Sean. Any advice for our political or public sector leaders?
Well, I think I absolutely agree with what Michael said around the red tape aspect and the bureaucracy associated with that. Understanding there's a need for some accountability, but let's understand what needs to happen quickly. But I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to do, and I think this is, people are worried about paying their rent. People are worried about finding enough toilet paper, if you can believe it, and groceries. And I think that needs to be, I guess, the fundamental thing. How can we enable that for the public? And I think that needs to be paramount in terms of public safety.
Listen, I appreciate everybody's exceptionally busy these days. Even if we are working in our home offices, there's still lots to do. So I want to thank Michael Burch, once again, managing partner of Welch LLP, Sean Murphy, the regional managing tax partner from MNP, and Ken Tammadge and Rosa Iuliano. Thank you all for joining me. And please stay tuned to obj.ca for more coverage on the COVID-19 pandemic. And we will be endeavoring to provide local business owners with practical advice on how they can adjust. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.